Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 156 of Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the works of writer, director, producer J.J. Abrams and his extended Bad Robot universe. I'm Matt Crandall, here with my co-host Marcelo Inostroza, as we continue looking at the ABC Bad Robot drama comedy, What About Brien? Today we are talking about the second season, episodes 10 and 11. Episode 10, What About the Tangled Web, finds Brien working for his dad and going on a retreat with Bridget, and Dina, Dave trying to encourage Nicole that they are the perfect person to be in the delivery room when she has her baby. And finally, everything starts to move. So Marcelo, what are you thinking as Brien is now fully working with his dad and dating his dad's ex-girlfriend? How do you feel about Brien weaving this tangled web with Bridget?
Yeah, listen, I mean, if you guys have listened to previous episodes, I have been sort of trying to figure out how I feel about Brien and Bridget, but when this episode came along, I was sort of happy for Brien because I've been feeling that he is getting ready to commit. He is getting ready to take the next step with Bridget. So I was happy for most of this episode that he was sort of shooing away his father when his father made advances towards him. And I do think that Bridget and him make a nice couple, but Brien has to get over his intimacy issues and his sort of hang-ups and his sort of insecurities to be in a proper relationship with Bridget. So Brien has to get to a point where he doesn't feel like the other shoe is going to drop. Unfortunately, the other shoe drops really, really quickly. But I kind of like where Brien and Bridget are going towards. With Dave and Dina basically fighting over who's going to help Nicole deliver her baby, I am so sick of these fucking people. I look. I know that being in a relationship with somebody is complicated and there's all sorts of rigmaroles, but I really, really think that at this point in the series, whether the writers knew they were going to cancel it or not, they should have put Dave and Dina on separate parts of their journeys. And I really, really would have appreciated it if they could learn how to co-parent together, because their chemistry that I liked in season 1, like I've said in previous episodes, has become the most grating thing on the show, because everything that they say to each other now has a sense of bitterness and a sense of, oh, I'm sniping at you because you slept with this girlfriend, or you slept with this guy, and the way that I reacted is because of what you did, so it's your fault. No, it's your fault. I'm tired of that bullshit. So I really wish that the writers would put them on the other side of the aisles, and then the writers could do what they want to do with them.
Yeah, I am kind of tired of them going at each other. The thing that I did like about this episode in particular for Dave and Dina is that Dave talks to Nicole and he's like, I can be there for you because obviously Angelo is dead. There's not going to be anybody to be in the delivery room. I've been there for 3 babies. I know everything we got to do. I'm going to be perfect. And he's like a really good salesman. And then the second that Dina and Nicole are alone, and Nicole says like, yeah, Dave said he would do this, Dina's like, he's fucking terrible at this. I wanted to kill him. And just seeing that, like, he has no idea that he was not supportive and good. Like, the guy's perspective is totally fucked from reality when it comes to this moment. And Dina's like, he thought he was helping, but like he was just the worst. So I loved that, where they have this back and forth. And we even see that, like, Dave is taking a different perspective because they give Nicole that baby book thing that the girls worked on, and Dave just hands it to her like it's nothing. And we know that Dina actually worked on it and it meant a lot. And for him to just give it to her is kind of rude and shows that Dave does not think about the small things, and maybe adds credence to Dina's point that, like, he is okay at big picture kind of, but he never like looks at the small things, and those add up. So we kind of get that he's still a fuck up. Even when he's well-intentioned, he still kind of fucks up. And I like that as this episode goes on and they're both doing their back and forth of like, who's going to be there for Nicole, by the time the moment comes when her water breaks and they rush her to the hospital, they have both been banned from the delivery room because they can't put their shit aside and do the right thing for their friend. Their bickering gets in the way, and she's like, I would rather have no one with me than these two fucking idiots who can't put their shit to the side. So I really liked that. And seeing Dave continues to do dumb shit, and he starts to struggle a little bit when he realizes that Sandwich Girl that he is starting to fall for is 20 years old and lives at home. And this is a bit of a problem for him, where he's like, I don't know. And seeing that is an issue where he's not sure if they can get past it, because he knows his friends are going to really ridicule him relentlessly for dating someone half his age, and he's trying to work that out. Of course, by the end of the episode, he does show up for her and makes an effort that he's going to try and move forward and not let that get in the way. It comes off a little bit like midlife crisis guy just diving in headfirst to the wrong thing, which is fine, I guess. The other, I'll talk a little bit more about Adam and Bridget in a minute, or Bridget and Brien in a minute, but what did you think of the Adam storyline where he is starting to realize he married a stripper and he doesn't like that his wife is a stripper? This is something that like should have come up earlier, but he's starting to realize, maybe I don't like that all these men are oogling my wife every day. So he shows up for like the lunch at the strip club to see what's going down.
Okay. The immature part of myself is like, dude, you fucking married a stripper? Do you realize the stories that you could get? The stories that you could listen to? But the mature part of me is like, okay, this is my wife's job, but just because she takes off her clothes for money doesn't mean that she doesn't love me any less. It's a job. She's playing a role. She's acting. It's not that important. And that, look, that may say a lot about my character, but I really kind of didn't like the way that Adam reacted to him, to him finding out that he was truly uncomfortable with Heather being a stripper. And the fact that he essentially tried to force her to quit, because he said at one point, just quit. I will support you. And the fact that Heather was like, it's just a job and I don't want you to emasculate me, really, really, really made me upset. Because again, I will repeat myself again. When you find a woman like that who is willing to have two personalities, you have the work person, and then you have the real person. If I was in Adam's situation, I would try to fit in the middle and try to understand her for both sides of her personality, even if it drove me insane. Because I would be like, she's not going to be a stripper forever. Eventually she's going to get enough money to do what she really wants to do. But then on the other hand, there are these women in the world that like to see Prince Charming make romantic gestures, like to show up at their work, to, ogle guys that look at them in this scenario in the strip club. But there are women who want the men who they're involved with to come and save them from their quote unquote castles. So I do their dungeons rather. So I do think that there's a part of Heather that wants to be independent, but there's also a part of her that wants Adam to save her from this life for a specific reason.
I think you're right. And it's tough because on one hand, I think it's a nice gesture for him to make, to say, if you don't want to do this anymore, you don't have to. And of course, by the end where he rents out the whole strip club so that she doesn't have to, is a nice moment. And she does then tell him, like, I've actually already quit. So, like, I took your words to heart. But also, it's kind of a dick move where you're like, if she likes this, and this is something that she enjoys doing to make the money, then you kind of got to let her be independent, and she's a grown woman. She can decide whether she wants to do this job or not. And he doesn't need to white knight it and be like, you can't do this anymore, because that's just kind of a dick move. So I was of two minds. I like that him renting out the place is a nice way to do the dick thing. So it's like the nice way of him saying, like, I can't have people look at you. But like, if you're not secure enough that you can let other guys, it's just her job. She's not going to marry those guys. Like, you've got to be secure enough in your relationship that it's fine. But I thought they ended at a nice place where she has decided that she doesn't want to do it anymore at the same time that he makes the grand gesture. So it worked out that by the end of it, we feel they're in a pretty solid spot. And, you know, the writers are going to throw us a few curveballs in those terms later as we move forward. But the other main thing of this is, you know, Brien and Bridget at the retreat with Brien's dad. And it's kind of like this weird triangle where Brien and his dad are trying to get their relationship back on track. But Bridget is Brien's dad's ex-girlfriend. And Bridget and Brien is trying to resist Bridget. He doesn't want to because he's trying to say, like, you know, I don't want to go out with my dad's ex-girlfriend. But Bridget is doing her best to really seduce him. And like, there's a big makeout scene where she's in her bra and like, she's looking hot. It's pretty tempting. And I think that scene was hilarious where they are finally going at it in this, you know, retreat hotel room. And Brien's dad is at the door because Nicole's water has broken. And Brien is like trying to decide what to do. Continue making out or answer the door and go help his sister. And he reluctantly shoves Bridget in a closet and goes with his dad to go see Nicole. So he makes the right decision in the end. But you can see the struggle where he is fully into this, you know, about to do it with Bridget. And his dad just will not go away and keeps interrupting. And they played that pretty well for some decent laughs and then have Brien do the right thing by going to go see his sister in her big moment.
Yeah, listen, like I said, when we started talking about this first episode, I really, really am beginning to like the idea of Brien and Bridget, but I'm really getting tired of Brian's father trying to reconnect with him to try and mend the fences that he sort of burned down when he was a kid. With that being said, I am really, really happy that Brien is in a place of finally being able to commit to a relationship that lasts more than 6 weeks, because Brien, as we've seen in the past, has been emotionally scarred. And because of that, he doesn't open up to women, so to speak, except for one woman. But we all know what happened with that one. So I'm really hoping that things work out with Bridget. And as kind of disgusting as I feel saying this, I do think that at some point, Brien and his dad are going to come to an understanding that although you slept with this woman before me, I'm going to try and put that aside, because this woman could be the woman that I have been looking for all along. And my love has kind of outgrown my disgust for what you did and the fact that you sleep around with everybody like a fucking whoremonger. So I am betting if this relationship goes where I think it's going to go, that Brien is going to be the better man, and he's going to choose Bridget for love, and he's not going to judge her on the men that she has slept with before him, which ironically, one of the men that she slept with before him happens to be his dad. I know that sounds disgusting, guys, but I'm hoping that Brien will choose love over the other thing.
Right. And by the time this episode comes to a close, we get Nicole has had the baby. Brien and the dad show up and everybody's there to see Nicole after she gave birth to a baby girl named Bella. And Brien is holding his niece and looking at her. And he basically says, you know, I've been hesitant to dive in with Bridget because of all my baggage, but I think that maybe I am actually in a place where I can start to move on. Cut to these motherfuckers. A shot of an escalator, and all of a sudden, coming down the escalator is Sarah Lancaster's Marjorie, and she goes around a corner and we cut to black, and that's the end of the episode. So it's showing us, just as Bella is here and Brien is saying, like, maybe I'm ready to commit to Bridget and give this a go, Marjorie arrives in town, back on the scene, and that's the end of this episode. What are you thinking as the last 10 seconds of this episode are the return of Marjorie, even if she hasn't made any waves yet?
Fuck these writers, with all due respect. Fuck these writers. Because y'all know how much I adore Marjorie. And the way that that character was done dirty through no fault of her own really, 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 really fucking aggravates me beyond belief. But her coming down the escalator gave hope to a theory that I have running in my head. So if I'm right, and if that theory does work out the way I think it's going to work out, probably not, because What About Brien has really, really gone in every direction than the one that I think is going to go in. But if my theory works out the way I think it's going to work out, this might be the greatest turnaround for a 2-season Bad Robot show that I've ever seen.
They really throw that grenade because Brien says he's ready to move on. Adam and Heather think that they might want to start a family soon. And now Marjorie is back. And episode 11, What About the Exes, tells us just by the title that this is going to be a shitstorm with Marjorie back in town. So, Marcelo, this episode kicks off with everyone going about their business because they don't know that this grenade has been lobbed into their lap, and it is going to go off very shortly. But we start with all four of the guys just golfing and giving each other shit, giving Dave shit about his young girlfriend, giving Adam shit about his stripper wife, giving Brien shit about being Eskimo brothers with his dad, and Jimmy just kind of hanging out. So what are you thinking as everybody is enjoying busting balls here and hanging out because two of our guys don't know that this grenade has been tossed?
I really like this scene because it really, really seems that it's a really, really calm moment before it's a really, really Bad Robot moment to me, because Bad Robot does a couple things extremely, extremely well. They do relationships really, really well, and they do young people having a good time in a big setting really, really well, except for Cloverfield, because that has action sequences in it. But I really like that all our main cast members are really, really starting to relax with each other to a point. And they're kind of just there. And again, I like the calm before the storm of Marjorie. So I was really, really hopeful. I mean, I knew that this episode was going to hit. I knew this episode was going to hurt because we had the grenade of Marjorie about to be pulled. But I really like this calm moment to sort of lull the characters into a false sense of security. So when Marjorie comes in, it can hit the people that we want it to hit even 100 times harder than it would have if Marjorie would have just randomly showed up at their party for some macabre reason, so to speak.
Right. And I definitely think that's why they did that. And from there, we go to a scene of Dave and Dina. Dina says she wants to do a photo shoot for her cupcake business. She needs Dave to take the kids. And Dave says, well, good news. My new job has a daycare center. So I can take the kids and they can be watched while you go do your cupcake bullshit. But just an FYI, my new girlfriend, Sandwich Girl, also works at this daycare center. And so that leads to Dina getting all dolled up for this photo shoot, but then making a big show of going to meet Dave's girlfriend and dropping the kids off to kind of establish her dominance. And Dave is like, I understand why you had to do this, but just so you know, you don't need to fucking doll up every time you come here. It's not a big deal. And so I thought that was interesting. But from their conversation about, the daycare, we go to one of the key scenes of the episode, which is Brien and Bridget talking about their past and their exes. And of course, Brien, being this guy who always fucks up at every turn, has a chance to tell her about Marjorie. Tell her about this, and he does not. He leaves it out. So the moment when he doesn't say anything, we know that at some point in this episode, it is going to come up and Bridget is going to be fucking pissed, or at least off kilter when she finds out, because it's conspicuous that Brien has not mentioned this, especially because they are trying to be open and they're trying to move forward and he doesn't. So how do you feel when they have this exes discussion and he leaves out this whole Marjorie thread?
The fact that Brien had the opportunity to tell Bridget about Marjorie really, really, really fucking shat me up the wall. Listen, I know about Brien's insecurities. I know about Brien's traumas, and I know his problem with commitment. But when your current girlfriend is giving you a window to talk about your past, so she is well informed, so if the time ever comes, if your past comes sneaking up on you, she won't be blown away by it. She'll be able to handle it. I'm really pissed with Brien that he didn't take that opportunity to be open with her and to be truthful to her about his feelings that he had towards Marjorie. If anything, it would have given him an opportunity to tell someone what he felt about Marjorie, someone who wasn't there in the beginning. He could have told a impartial third party. So he could have really sussed out if his feelings for Marjorie were real, or if they were just or if they were just a emphatic infatuation. So I'm really upset that Brien didn't use this moment to analyze his feelings about the way that he really felt about Marjorie. Listen, that's something that they would have done in Felicity, but I really wish that they would have done it here. Do you feel the same way, or do you think I'm crazy?
Well, I do, and I know that the reason that the writers made it that we're kind of screaming at the TV is because we know Marjorie is back and Brien doesn't know. So he doesn't know that omitting this is going to blow up in his face in like 12 hours. So we know, dude, you fucked up here. You could have just been honest, but he thought he was going to be able to sweep that under the rug to not scare Bridget off. But sometimes you got to be honest and just let all this shit out to make sure that you can actually move forward. But because he's about to be drawn back into all that mess because Marjorie is back in town, it makes sense why they wrote it the way they did. But it's frustrating because we want Brien to actually move on and find happiness on his own in a way that is believable and not too far-fetched. So that is the first, the title, What About the Exes? That's the first, exes thing. Brien and Bridget have the talk, he leaves out Marjorie. The other thing that happens early in the episode is that Adam and Heather come home, and Adam's TV, amongst other things, are fucking stolen. And Heather's like, oh shit, it's this dude from the strip club, Schmitty. He has broken in and taken a bunch of our crap. And they even call the cops, and they're like, yeah, we know it's this guy Schmitty, but there's nothing we can do. The cops are like, I don't know what to tell you. And Heather says, well, this guy was kind of upset that I, 1, got married to someone who wasn't Schmitty, 2, that I stopped stripping for Schmitty, because 3, Schmitty kind of gave me a shit ton of money as I was doing this. And there's a lot of red flags where she's like, no, we weren't an item and there was nothing weird going on. He was just a customer. But as the title of the episode implies, maybe there is something more going on here. And as this mystery kind of unfolds and gets weirder and weirder, what are you thinking about Heather's past and this Schmitty dude all of a sudden showing up?
I really like this Schmitty storyline reminded me of something that Richard would have done to Noel and Felicity. Like this Schmitty dude gave off Richard vibes all up the yin yang. But again, that being put aside, I really think that this episode was a tour de force for Adam, in that this is the episode where Adam really has to deal with his feelings of being uncomfortable when it comes to what Heather does. And I feel that this would have been his opportunity to say to her, okay, I understand that you used to be a stripper, but listen to me. Whatever you did with this guy, I need you to straighten this out, because I am doing the best I can here to accept the person that you used to be, but shit keeps happening in our lives. And when stuff happens to me directly and that affects what I do, then it's our problem. So either you go deal with this or I will. So basically I would have thrown the ball in her court. Of course, that's not what Adam does, but that's what I would have done. But again, that's coming from an individual that would meet Heather halfway. So I'm really upset that the writers didn't take that opportunity to give Adam a grace point. But the reason that they didn't do that, alluding to what Matt said before, there's a grenade that's about to go off in this episode. And I really think the way that Brien acted with Bridget is in a different way, the way that Adam acted with Heather, in that both of them are being given shitty experiences in this episode. And they're about to step on even a shittier moment, or they're about to explode the grenade that blew up their entire friendship group almost a year ago. So I do think that what the writers are doing is intentional, but I just wish that the writers would have written the dialogue to get to the grenade of Marjorie a little bit differently. I wish that they would have given Adam and Brien a little bit more grace dealing with their respective partners in this episode. I have no problem with them setting off the grenade, because that's going to happen. But I wish that they would have given them a little bit more grace, and they would have shown a little bit more maturity on Brien and Adam's part with the way that they deal with the problems that they are going through in their relationship at this point. That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think they're just, so excited about the fact that Marjorie is going to show up at the end of this episode and fuck everything up, that they kind of don't want to spend too much time giving those characters, as you said, grace. We see Nicole is, 3 weeks into being a new mother, single mother, and she's kind of losing it. Brien comes over to babysit, and she's disheveled and says, "Oh, I can't wait to go out of the house and go to the supermarket." And he's like, "Oh, can't I just go do the errand and you can stay with the baby?" She's like, "Hell no. You have to watch the baby." And Brian's like, "Oh, are you going to go out dressed like that?" And she's like, "Yeah, why?" And he's like, "No reason. I always just ask people if they're going to go out dressed like that when it's perfectly fine." And so it's funny that Brien has this moment where Bella is crying, and he ends up giving her a soother that he wasn't supposed to give her to make her stop crying. And it's showing that he's kind of stepping up and maturing a bit. And Nicole goes to the supermarket, and the lady working at the cash is like, "Oh, you look like shit." And Nicole's realizing that this is a big task being a mother, and that she's looking kind of disheveled and maybe needs a little bit more help, but she's doing the best that she can. And from there, we get the scene where everybody goes out for dinner. So a bunch of the people, Dina is getting ready for her big cupcake photo shoot. Brien and Bridget have had this talk. They're getting ready. They go out for dinner. Jimmy is there, Adam, Dave, all the guys, and Jimmy's wife. And as they're sitting there, Amanda Foreman is complaining about her food, and she's going to send it back. And they're like, "Please don't. They're going to spit in all her shit. Like, don't do this." And Brien just needs a moment of air. And so they go outside, and Brien thinks he sees Marjorie. And she's like, "It's not Marjorie. It can't be. She's gone. Like, you're probably just having this trauma come back because you're ready to move on. So, like, stop dwelling in the past and just move on." What are you thinking as they pull this bullshit? We all know it is Marjorie, but Brien is thinking that his mind is playing tricks on him.
I really like it. And like you said, we all know that it's Marjorie, but I really like that moment because, like I said previously, although I wasn't happy with the way that the writers chose not to give Adam and Brien grace, I really like the visual of basically making them have a shit day and then just throwing emotional crap on top of their face. The fact that Brien is the one that goes out to the car to get his wallet, and the fact that he looks across the street and he's not sure that it's Marjorie, just makes it that much sweeter. But but at this point I was wondering, okay, is this all they're going to do, or is there going to be another reason to bring Marjorie back into the story? Because for her to come back into the story, I could only think of a couple things before I saw this episode. But what they do with it in a roundabout way is really interesting to me. And like I said before, with Dave and Dina, I think that they should be on. I think that they should be loving parents, but they should be on both sides. They should be on separate sides, right? And live their separate lives. Essentially, I want to see them stop bickering and be civil with each other, for God fucking sakes. We all need it. I need it, and Matt needs it as well. I think what the writers envisioned as a device to bring to bring Marjorie back into the fold in a believable way is fucking awesome, because I did not see it coming. Did you?
Well, I didn't, because did anybody remember that Marjorie was a doctor? No, she was in a hospital in one scene, and like then we never revisited her occupation ever again. So all of a sudden, where we do this, it does line up, because in that first episode, she is a doctor and she goes to a medical conference in Vegas. But literally every other episode she's in, we never mention what she does or see her at her work. So they did find a clever way to do it, and that all comes to pass because at the daycare, Sandwich Girl says to Dave, something is wrong with Carrie, your youngest daughter. I think she's deaf. And Dave's like, the fuck? I would notice if my daughter was deaf. And she's like, no, but just watch. Like, she's not reacting to any of these noises. Something is wrong here. And Dave and Dina take her to a doctor, and they find out that sometime in the last, 6 months or something has happened, that Carrie has lost a lot of her hearing. So he says, it's probably a combination of just too many ear infections and things. This can happen. And Dave and Dina are both depressed that they didn't realize this. How could they not notice, because they're so wrapped up in their old shit? And so they're trying to find specialists to figure out the best path forward, whether there's going to be surgery involved or whatever it is. And as they're looking at the sheets, they see Dr. Marjorie Seaver on there. And they say, well, this has to be old. And Dave said, no, this is like a printout of the current roster of people local. And so they are taken aback. But Dina says, well, if our friend who can help Carrie is in town, I should reach out. And so Dina sets up a meeting with Marjorie, and that's how she is going to come back into the fold. But it's surprising to us that she's on this list, implying that she has been back in town longer than just arriving, 2 days previous or something. She is working. She's doing her own thing. So we're going to have a few spots we need to fill in with that. And all of this is cross-cut with the Adam Schmitty thing. As you said, you wish he had just talked to Heather and said, Heather, sort this out. He doesn't. He goes and he gets the information about Schmitty from making a call to the strip club and saying, like, I'm investigating credit card fraud or whatever the hell. And he ropes Jimmy into it. And Jimmy's like, dude, I don't want to be roped into this. What if the guy's got a gun? And Adam's like, dude, he doesn't have a gun. He's just some wimp. I need you. You're my Goose. I'm Maverick. And Jimmy's like, yeah, we're Goose and Maverick. And then Jimmy goes, wait a minute. Doesn't Goose die? And of course, yes, Goose dies. So I thought that was really funny. And they go to Schmitty's pad and they demand the TV back. And Schmitty is played by, a character actor who's been on Mad Men and some other stuff. And so you see him and you're like, oh, this fucking guy. And Adam gets the TV back, but we know Schmitty says, like, she made me promises. We had like arrangements and deals, and we're starting to wonder what is actually going on here. Now, obviously that's going to be pushed later by the time this Marjorie thing takes the fore. But so this Adam Schmitty bullshit is ramping up at the same time that the Carrie is deaf and they need a doctor stuff is ramping up, at the same time as Nicole accidentally tells Bridget about Marjorie, and Bridget gets fucking pissed that Brien left this out, and they have to sort of work this through. And then the big final scene of the episode is where everything comes to a head, because Dina and Marjorie are having a nice meal and discussing medical treatment for Carrie when a double date between Adam and Heather and Bridget and Brien shows up into the restaurant. Now, Marjorie does let us know she has been back for a while. She's just didn't feel comfortable going back to the group. And she says, like, I don't want to see anybody for a long time. I need more time. And Dina says, I'm so sorry. I didn't plan this. Marjorie turns around and we see all of them walk through the door, and Brien and Adam clock Marjorie. And that's where we end with the, oh shit. If What About Brien was ever doing a Lost ending, this was it, where we see all three of them kind of looking at each other and then cut to black. So what are you thinking as that grenade goes off right in the last second?
I am losing my mind, but I am really, really frustrated, because I am so excited to find out what happens next with Brien and Adam in the restaurant with Heather and Bridget. And of course, Dina talking to Marjorie about potential treatment for their deaf child. So I am oddly frustrated, because I don't know where the story's going to go. I don't know if the story's going to go in the way that I think it's going to go, or in the way that I want it to go, or if it's going to go the more traditional route, which really, really, really frustrates me because I kind of like Heather and I don't want her to be hurt. And if where I think it's where and where I think if it goes indeed down that path, I'll be really, really upset. In that same regard, I'm really happy that Dave and Dina have something serious to deal with their child, and the fact that their child is now deaf. So because the fact that they have to deal with this bullshit, they could spend an episode or two yelling at each other for not being able to catch this if they want, but eventually they're going to have to stop fucking fighting with each other and focus on their fucking child. So through that, I really hope that they can find the people that they want to be without each other. And for God help us all, if they do that, I think me and Matt will thank the writers for that immensely, because they, although Dave is a lovable idiot and he's a fucking moron, Dave by himself without Dina is 100 times better, and Dina without Dave is better as well.
And when they come together, it's just chaos.
Just one quick word on the Schmitty thing and the Adam thing and the Heather thing. I think that it's going to be a really interesting playground for the writers to have some comedic scenes between Heather and Adam. But I do believe that through the storyline, we can possibly get some backstory on Heather and find out what kind of shady deals or what kind of promises that she made with Smitty. But again, like I said in the start of this episode, Heather is an adult. And what Heather does with her clients is just a job. My God, kid. It's just a job. And Adam has to be, to take a page out of Matt's book, Adam has to be secure in his own masculinity as a man to understand that everything that this person did before she met me, I'm willing to give her a pass on. What I judge her on now is what she does in the course of this relationship. Anything else I have to forgive. But listen, guys, from a story aspect, that's boring. But that's what I would do at this point in the series. And I don't know if I'm thinking of that. I don't know if I'm concocting that because I know the series is almost over, or because I just think it's a better storyline for them to go down. So I don't know what's what, but one thing I will tell you is that I'm really excited to see where the show goes from here. Although it's probably not going to go anywhere that I believe it might go, but I am excited for some weird reason after weeks of being so over the show.
Yeah, I think they know that they're really about to cram a lot of ideas and a lot of story into this back half of season 2. And I think it was because they're trying to raise the stakes to try and grab viewers. And I can't remember if they knew that this was going to be ending or not. So we'll have to see how it all plays out, whether it leaves the door open or whether it's like this is the swan song. So they're trying to get out all the ideas they had. But it does feel like so much stuff is building and building that they're just going crazy with the ideas. And hopefully it will all land in a way that feels satisfying and not like too many threads that we didn't end up weaving together in a satisfying way. But we'll have to find that out as we move forward. So next week we will talk about episode 12 and 13 of the second season of What About Brien, where Marjorie is fully back and this stuff is going to really dive into the Sarah Lancaster stuff. So we'll have to see if Brien and Adam can survive this shit and whether their relationships can or not. If you guys enjoy the show, please like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment. You can email us at jjuniverse815 at AOL.com or on X at jjuniverse815. You can reach out to me on Letterboxd only. I am MDC3000. We also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/radio8152. If you're actually looking for Radio 815, that's not going to get you to us. 8152 is the one that gets you to us. And like, follow, subscribe. You can listen to it there. You can leave comments. And that's just a nicer platform if you don't really love the podcast thing. Marcelo, if the people want to reach out to you, you're still kicking it on X. How can people do that?
Yeah, if you want to talk to me about anything bad robot, you can just reach me on X. I'm at CreekFanatic88. But I would like to thank the few people that have given me comments over the past week, praising our YouTube channel, because I run all that stuff. So those wonderful comments have not gone on deaf ears, and I just want to say that I appreciate that you like the work that we do here on the show.
Very good. So we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Tell a friend, tell your enemy, doesn't matter. Tell Marjorie. Let her know that we're back and podcasting about What About Brien. And until next time, Radio 815, over and out.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.